Okay, then we can call this meeting to order. Are there any changes or modifications to the agenda from staff?
The only two that I wanted just to bounce off of the commission was B and possibly G
On which one?
on the modified agenda. Does everybody have a modified agenda? There should be, if you look,
And you're talking about the consent agenda.
yeah,
You say B and G.
right, but we don't have, not everybody has the modified one.
Yeah.
But if you've got the modified agenda, it'd be 2B and 2G. You know, if we're gonna talk about commission makeup, we may want to wait to approve those until the discussion on the committees. So anyway, that would be my recommendation,
Oh, so pull B and G to discussion,
down to action items.
down to action,
Yeah.
okay.
It's,
What do you, I mean, that it's a suggestion because I know there's some other items on the agenda, so I didn't want to get a consent calendar item approved if there were going to be later adjustments in the meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we'll down to action items C and D.
Yes,
well, I would suggest. You know, I sent in a bunch of comments.
Mhm.
And staff has attempted to address each of those comments. And I think it probably be worthwhile going down through them because some of them I'd like to challenge. And some of them other people may have some input to.
Oh, so you don't feel like you were adequately responded to on the comments?
No, I think there's still some open items that probably is worthy of some discussion.
Okay, and does the commission feel that those should be a discussion in this meeting, or do you think this is something that should be a back and forth between staff?
No, I think it ought to be a discussion here with this commission. And then direction given to staff.
I think this is the first time for Tor and Heather and
I haven't seen these
Yeah,
comments,
yeah,
yet, but I
exactly.
just want to have a chance to read them.
exactly. So what I'm thinking is maybe we allow people to read and digest. We can kind of go back and forth with staff. And if there needs to be direction to staff, this might be a better discussion to make an agenda item for the next meeting. Because this is the first time anyone else has seen the comments. Would you all agree? Can I get a thumbs up from the people?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, perfect. Okay, any other modifications or additions to the agenda? And if not, let's move to public comment.
So there is one other comment that came up before you got in here. The discussion on potential funding scenarios,
Okay,
options. There was a discussion perhaps of moving that into public. Because it applies to more than just one particular topic. That this has come from Kevin? Or I'm sorry, Genevieve?
There's just a memo about airport development,
mhm,
that's marked for executive session, but I don't think it's allowable in executive session, even though it's related to a topic that you have currently scheduled for executive session, so you might need to go back into regular session, or depending on how broad the discussion gets.
okay. So we can
If it's
Jump off-
particular,
jump off that
exactly.
cliff when we get
Kristen's
there.
here to help us when that has to happen.
Okay. So I have one person signed up for public comment. Steve?
Yes. Thank you, commissioners, for letting me speak. I don't do much of it, so bear with me. I'm here today because of the concern of the absorbent fees for parking. $2.50 an hour, I don't think you thought it out. That ridiculous for people who want to go out on the boat and fish. Or senior citizens who want to watch the waterfront on the path, on the pavement path. If a senior went out to walk on that path at $2.50 an hour, and there are a lot of seniors that go out and walk just about every day. And if they did, that would be $900 and something a year for a senior citizen to walk that path 1 hour. And I'm not sure if they walked 1 minute over that, if they would be charged another $2.50 or not, I have no idea. The app is absolutely foolish. Everybody I talk to, including myself, is having a hard time with it. It's almost impossible to use. It'll work maybe one time and then 5 or 6 times in a row or whatever. It won't work. You just keep trying and trying. You give up. I've talked to people who said they just gave up. They ended up getting tickets. They came in, they got the tickets nullified, which is wonderful. Thank you. But you know, a lot of people here, and I'm not saying I'm one, but I sure know a lot of senior citizens are on fixed income. And I also know that this county has a high rate of poverty. We may be very wealthy. I don't know if you've been reading on Facebook on the Maui, I'm sorry. I used to live in Lahaina, so I'm kind of taken up by it. The Facebook page for Hood River. I started the thing asking people what their opinions were. I've got at least 65 responses. In quite a bit, but I get a lot of phone calls too, from friends and neighbors saying that they're really upset with this $2.50 an hour. You realize that we're going out fishing, right? So I'm out for 5 hours. And in September and October, it's important for me to go out. Like I say, I'm not on a fixed income, but that's getting closer every day with the rate of inflation. And we put away fish. It's legal. I spend my money on a license, which is $180 a year. Plus fuel for my very inexpensive boat. That, if I went out for 5 hours a day, 5 days a week for 2 months, that's over $500 that I'm paying for going out trying to get some food. It doesn't make sense. I know you want to charge $200 for the Marina Basin. And I understand you charging the $200 for the event center. And the reason why I agree with that is because that is the best beach in the entire waterfront. And a small minority of people that live here in Hood River County use that. Nobody else can use that. You would not bring your children to that beach because they're gonna get hurt. And I think everybody would agree with that. It's not a place for kids. I know you have a small beach, but it would be much nicer if that beach was open to the public. So I can understand why those people should be charged that much. They're taking away a lot of property from the citizens of Hood River. And I'm not against windsurfing. I was a serious windsurfer for many years. I coached the world champion wing foiler here in Hood River. So I'm not against it, and I know our businesses need that income. I can remember in about 1982 that nobody wanted any windsurfers, and now I think a lot of it's changed, and people realize it brings in a lot of money to the community. But at the same time, why are we getting charged $200 to put out? Well, I know we can put the boat in the water without being charged, correct? If we leave the park, is that correct? Because it's state and federal. But why are we being charged somewhere between $12.50 and $15 a day to park so we can go fishing? Or bringing your kids out to go, riding on inner tubes or whatever they do out there, wakeboards, whatever. For me, it just doesn't make sense, and for a lot of people, it doesn't make sense. The state, first, I wouldn't try to find out as much information as I could about different port authorities, all the way down from here down to Astoria. And most of them don't charge anything at all. Now, they might not have as nice facilities or whatever as this parking lot is, but still, most of them. I did see one charged $30 and half price for seniors and veterans, and another one for $57 that was half price for seniors and veterans. And that's a year, a permit for a year. You know, the state parks and our national forest parks charge us close to $30, $32 a year for a pass. I see no reason. I think everybody here, even people that are somewhat close to the poverty line, could afford that. And it just makes sense. We're being forced out of this town. My 3 kids can't live here. It's getting too expensive. I read an article last year that said Hood River is the 7th most expensive small town in the United States. Vineyard Haven on Martha's Vineyard was first, Aspen was second, Breckenridge was third, Carmel, California was fourth, and forget who 5th and 6th. We were number 7. We all know the prices of houses now have just gone beyond belief. We're being priced out. And my wife and I are retired. She's a former doctor. I'm a former water quality engineer. It's getting tougher and tougher to make it. And for me to go fishing is really important. And I don't know what to say other than please think about this. This is hurting a lot of people. And I'm surprised I'm the only one here. I'm kind of disappointed because everybody said, oh, we're coming, we're coming. And then when I saw the size of the office, I said, oh my goodness, how are we gonna get them all in here? Well, here I am like an idiot myself, but anyway.
No, we appreciate your comment for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just wish you would reconsider this. And I know you need money. And I know if you charge $30 a year for the boat ramp and to be able to walk out on the hook and stuff like that. Probably wasn't gonna make you much money, but at least it's something. And I don't think if you charge everybody here $2.50 an hour and it's not, well, for me to go fishing, you know, is $500. And most of the people who go out during the week in September and October are senior citizens. And I know most of them, they don't have a lot of money, you know. They're hurt and their feelings are hurt too, that this is happening. My suggestion, take it however you want, would be a $30 a year fee, permit fee, a sticker you put on your window. I have no problems paying the money to go over the bridge. I just came in today and put $60 into it. Because I have a feeling you're gonna be going over a lot to go to Bingen to put in the boat, as a lot of people are going to. Fishermen especially. Anyway, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but thank you very much for listening to me, and
Thank you, Steve, for your comment. We really appreciate it and we'll definitely take it into consideration.
will we hear anything about this or in the paper or what your considerations are?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so consent agenda, removing items B and G. Can we move forward and get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I can make a motion to approve the consent agenda with consent items B and G be moved to action.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair, approved. Okay, infinite informational reports.
Just for the, I vote no.
Oh, I'm
Just
sorry.
for the record. Okay, thank you.
But you did not want to have a discussion?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, informational reports. Does anyone have any questions about the bridge replacement project? If not, then we can go to the presentation and discussion items. No, okay.
You want me to go ahead and make the introduction?
Yes, please. That would be
All right.
great.
So in your packet, Genevieve prepared a staff report, and I believe on Zoom, we have Kelly. Can you hear us?
Yes.
And Kelly, you're going to do kind of a presentation on, what was it, a 2-year program for the EV station down on First?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I was planning to do a presentation about the cruise project, which started in 2019, actually. Hard to believe it's been that long ago, but just wrapped up in June. And I'm actually joined by one of my colleagues, Christine Holland, as well. So hoping she's able to join us. But I have a few slides to share. Is it all right if I go ahead and share them? Just share my screen. Let's see here. One moment. This is it. Bear with me here. Okay. Loading. All right. Does it look like you're seeing a first slide?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. So, hi everyone, my name's Kelly Yerrick. I'll just do a brief intro of myself. I'm a senior program manager at Forth, and Forth is a nonprofit based out of Portland that is primarily focused on electrifying transportation. And a lot of my work is focused on pilot program implementation. And so that's what I'll be talking about today is the Cruise project, which is an acronym that we've used over the years for this project, which is the longer name of which is the Clean Rural Shared Electric Mobility Project. And as part of this project, I'll get into it on the next slide. One of our partners in it is the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. And so I'm joined by one of those data researchers, Christine. And so Christine will come online in a few slides to contribute to what I'm going to share. So the Cruise project, just to give a brief overview for those that may be less or unfamiliar with it, is, as I mentioned, it was funded by the U.S. Department of Energy in 2019. And on the left-hand side are a few bullet points of just some of our major objectives that we were that we set out to accomplish in front of the Department of Energy as part of this project. But really, I kind of want to highlight on the right-hand side, these 3 areas that we were really focused on achieving within the program. One is increasing access to clean transportation. So we really came into this program hoping to provide an option of clean transportation via a shared electric vehicle to the community in Hood River there. And the Port of Hood River hosted a vehicle down on the waterfront. And this vehicle kind of served 2 purposes. One was for the general community to use, and the other was for the goal, at least, was to have visitors that more frequent that area more so to also have the opportunity to use a clean, emissions-free vehicle when they're visiting the waterfront, and also just Hood River and Hood River County more generally. The second goal of ours is to increase access to EV charging. And so part of the deployment of that vehicle included installing a level 2 electric vehicle charging station. That charging station is still there, even though the program has ended and the car share portion of it has ended. And so, yeah, our goal was to provide the charging infrastructure to serve the car share vehicle, but then also have it remain within Hood River for the future. So current EV drivers and also future EV adopters or visitors to Hood River would be able to find a place to charge. And then finally, research and knowledge transfer. So I mentioned that this is a pilot project. It was designed to run for 3 years, and sort of the outcome of it to kind of understand what the barriers are to implementing a program like this in a community like yours. And so we collected a lot of data throughout, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And right now we're kind of doing the knowledge transfer side of things, which is just sharing the results of our learnings, not only with you all and our other project partners in this, but with the industry more broadly, in the hopes that other communities that are interested can learn from our experiences and perhaps, replicate some version of this program where they live. This is just a quick snapshot of the timeline. I want to be mindful of time, so I'm not going to go into it in full. However, I'm happy to share these slides after the fact. I can send those over to you, Genevieve or Kevin. But just to give you a sort of a bookend version, we were funded by the Department of Energy in October 2019. Contracting kind of took a little bit of time, and so we didn't actually officially kick off with our funder until March 2020. And so, as I'm sure you can imagine and recall, there were a lot of reasons that, getting this project off the ground were delayed, first and foremost being the pandemic. But from its official launch date in June 2021 through June 2023, we did operate the car share there in Hood River. I'm also really excited to share that the vehicle on the port's property was actually the highest performing vehicle. And I'll share a little bit more about utilization on my next slide. So some of our accomplishments to highlight, certainly your community is a really special one that's grown really near and dear to Forth's heart, I would say. The Hood River community, your residents that live there, but also you all and our other partners in this project have just shown so much support and offered so much helpful feedback and input to this program throughout its life. As part of the project, we were really trying to reduce as many barriers to access of this program as possible. So that included implementing a Spanish language version of the app that was used by members to reserve the cars. We offered varying pricing structures depending on who was using that car. So we did place a couple of cars at Columbia Cascade housing property. And so residents there were offered a lower rate than the general public was. And then we also offered a few options for alternative payment that didn't require the use or access to a bank account. Throughout the project, again, due to a lot of feedback that we received, we were able to find some more funding to swap out the vehicles for vehicles with longer range. We reduced the price of the hourly rate to reserve a car from what was originally at $8 an hour down to $5 an hour at the end. And also at the housing sites, that rate dropped to $2 an hour. So really, we were trying to make this as affordable as possible. And then we also did a lot of in-person outreach toward the end of the project. And now I'll draw your attention to the statistics there on the right. And really honing in on the utilization percentages there. So in 2021, we had a pretty low utilization rate because we were still somewhat in the midst of the pandemic. Our in-person outreach approaches weren't really able to be implemented in full. So we were really limited to more digital methods, but we started to change that approach moving into 2022 and certainly this year. And we saw a huge boost in utilization, as you can see year over year. We attribute a lot of that as well to not just the outreach approaches, but to the vehicle swaps that we did, giving members a longer range vehicle to choose from, and also a vehicle that performed better with the software that we were utilizing. In total, we had just under 100 people register to use the program, which is pretty exciting for one that had a lot of real challenges that we encountered throughout its life. And then this last item here is provided by Pacific Northwest National Lab, which is we're estimating we're still waiting on a few sites to report data, but as of now, we're estimating conservatively that we saved 4.5 tons of carbon as a result of the vehicle miles traveled. And then just a few learnings that I'll highlight. I've already spoken to a lot of these already, but one being that the vehicles that we were originally donated to use in this project. They were a Honda, what was called a Honda Clarity. They were pretty incompatible with the platform we were using, but we didn't, of course, know that going into it. And so we were able to secure more funding and ultimately swap those vehicles for a combination of Nissan Leafs and Chevy Bolts, which you may have heard of. They're a bit more common electric vehicles found. And so we had a lot more success both in utilization and just the overall user experience when we did those swaps. I mentioned that, you know, the pandemic really did prohibit and limit our ability to do what we felt would be meaningful community outreach and engagement earlier on, but we did do a fantastic in-person event in November 2022 that was hosted at Rio Bella, one of the housing sites. And we saw just a huge boost in membership and utilization following that event. And so that sort of highlights the value of in-person outreach, especially in a smaller community like Hood River, while also the value of a local partner in that. So we partnered with the Nextdoor to deliver that event, and they also did some surveying of residents leading up to it and during that event. And so they're a really trusted organization in Hood River, as I'm sure you all are aware. So we were really, really happy to be able to partner with them, and certainly the program saw tremendous benefits from that. And then I think I'm going to turn it over to you, Christine, to finish up our last slide here.
Great, thank you so much, Kelly. So in this slide, we just summarize the costs for the program. And it's important to be mindful that this was one of the first programs of its kind in the country. So there was a learning curve here. And also the total costs include the capital expenditures and the upfront learning, which are high. But if you continue the program, you know, the marginal expenses decrease every year. So for the 4 years of operation, our total expenditures were $816K. And of those, the capital expenditures and installation were $90K, and those consisted of the charging infrastructure and installation. Here we had 5 chargers in total, five ports in total, 4 single port 40 amp chargers, then 1 level 2 charger. I don't have more details on the level 2. It was a little bit more expensive than the 40 amp chargers. So I think it was like a little higher rating, faster charging port. And then from the operating expenses, those combined came out to $726,000. So those were obviously the majority of the total program expenditures. And of those, program management administration was $220K approximately. Special events and marketing was $20K. The vehicle leasing itself was approximately $54K. Then the platform fees and insurance were $429K. And then the electricity fee to charge the vehicles was approximately $3K. So then if you go to the box to the right, you can see the percentage of each one of the operating expenses, their contribution to the overall operating expenses. And so you can see that the platform fees were the highest, comprising almost 60% of total expenditures, then management next, followed by vehicle leasing, then special events and marketing, then lastly, the electricity costs. So you could expect, if this program were to continue with all the learnings and the fact that the program is up and running, that the marginal expenses would, your return on your investment would continue to increase over time.
Christine,
Yes.
what kind of revenue did you get during the same period?
I can back up to that slide.
So I don't have that. Do you have that slide, Kelly? Okay.
Yeah, so it's just over 4,000 in revenue.
And mind you, these were special programs. for low income disadvantaged communities. Some of them were. So the point wasn't to optimize revenues and profits as much as it was to understand the program, get the program running, and learn from it to better engage in the future. So this was, again, the first shot. So if you look at the cost versus revenues, it doesn't look great, but that wasn't the point this time around.
So one other question for you, Christine, please. So I see your revenue at $4,000, 4,000 and change. You got 5 chargers. What was the percent utilization on the chargers? Could other folks with electric vehicles use those chargers as a commercial, or just the equipment that you had in this program?
I believe anybody could use it, right, Kelly?
So technically that was true. However, we had signed with the intention was that it would be dedicated to the car share, but because of the way the chargers were programmed, they technically anyone could have charged from them. But we had signage indicating that it was those parking spaces were reserved for the car share vehicle.
Thank you.
Kelly, how are you defining utilization?
Oh, yeah,
Like-
that's a good question. So this is so the percentage kind of based on uptime, or not uptime, excuse me, total available hours. So in this case, we're just looking at in a 24-hour period, how many hours the vehicle was reserved. So this is all time, basically 1.25% of all the time within 2021, then so and so on.
Okay, great. And I would say, so PNNL is working on another program where we're building a tool to estimate the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program charging station stations that are just eligible for the NEVI rebate. And we look at a lot of utilization rates, and they're typically less than 1 per day. The adoption, the saturation rate of EVs is still very low. So I would say that that's pretty good given, national averages.
How much of your costs were one-time costs versus recurring costs?
Yeah, can you go to that last slide?
Yes.
So the capital expenditures, charging stations, the single port and level 2 chargers, they have a pretty, I'd say they have like a 15-year life. They'll become obsolete after 15 years. So that 90K is good for, up to 15 years. Then the operating expenses, again, the program management and administration, a lot of that was the upfront, getting the program up and running. There were many partners involved in this. You had the, OpConnect, which was the platform for the ride share. Then you had Envoy, which was the charging platform. You had the leasing of the vehicles. You had the maintenance of the vehicles. You had the maintenance of the chargers. So just understanding that and getting all the partners in place was a big part of that program management administration. And Kelly can speak to the special events and marketing. I think they wanted to do more of that. The vehicle leasing, that would be ongoing. And then the platform fees and insurance, that is really high. And I wanted to dig a little bit more into that to understand if over time, if those fees could come down. I mean, the insurance will probably stay static, and that was a very tiny portion of that 429K. So that one I need to do a little bit more digging into. And then the electricity fees they had, I looked at Pacificor's energy and demand rates, and those were pretty reasonable. So you could expect 3K to be ongoing.
And I would just note, I put this in the chat as well, but these figures include actual like dollar costs as well as in-kind contributions. So as an example, the vehicle leasing, only about half of that was actual cost to us. The other roughly half of that was the value of vehicles that had been donated. So it just, yeah, we will provide kind of a more thorough breakdown of what was actual cost versus like donated services.
Kelly, if the port chooses not to participate, when would the station be removed?
Oh, so I didn't understand, I didn't realize that was part of the discussion for tonight. So I can't speak to that exactly. I will say, I've asked our contact at OpConnect to look into that for me for one of the other chargers that the city of Hood River is hosting. They wanted to explore that option, but I don't have a timeline per se. I'm still waiting to see what the cost would be.
And then just a follow-up if I could.
Mhm.
Would, if the commission decides to keep the charger, would your program relocate it to another spot at the port? I'm thinking the airport potentially.
Sure. That is not within the scope of our of the project of Fort's responsibilities in the project, since it did officially end in June. However, we would be more than happy to assist the port if you were interested in adding a charger to another location, multiple locations. We'd be happy to assist you in applying for funding. Pacific Power has a number of rebate programs, as does the state of Oregon, that you could apply to. And again, we could help you with that application and get almost all of those costs back.
Okay, and thank you very much for the presentation. We appreciate it. And does anyone have any other questions? Are we good?
Yeah, one other question for you. What happened to the vehicles?
Yeah, great question. So they were removed by Envoy, the platform provider, at the end of June. We were leasing those vehicles from Envoy as part of the program. So they're back at the dealership now.
So are
Okay, so-
are the charging stations unusable at this point?
Nope, they're absolutely usable. They are, to my understanding, they're currently not connected, so no one can use them at this moment. Because I know we are in some negotiations with you all on what to do with it. But yeah, they're perfectly functioning as soon as we kind of decide to turn them back on.
Okay, thank you.
So the dealers are looking to sell these vehicles. How long have they been used? 3 years?
So we received 2022, we got brand new vehicles, so they're at this point, you know, a year and a half old, but not that many miles on them. So yeah, the dealership would probably be either looking to release them back to Envoy, and then Envoy would continue to use them in other programs that they have around the country, or I'm not familiar enough with how dealers navigate post-lease vehicles, but I imagine they might try to sell them to the public.
So also
Where I
included in
was
your,
going with that is that if we did do something with this up at the airport, if we could get those vehicles cheap enough, and we have a charging station up there, maybe that makes sense.
Maybe that's a different discussion. I think we could probably have a discussion about that.
Okay.
After doing our own research.
Okay.
But I thank you so much for your time. Does anyone else have any other questions?
just wanted you to know that also in your packet is the OpConnect service quote. If you did want to keep the charging station in its location and you did want to charge people to charge their vehicles, that would be the quote from the service provider to accept payment at that. Not pump, but at that station. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all so much for inviting me to give this presentation. And we'll certainly be in touch whenever we have the sort of the final report out. But thank you again for your time and thank you for your support of this project.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, next is Debbie with fiscal year 2022-23 year-end financial report.
Yes,
stuff.
fun stuff, yes, indeed. So yes, I wanted to put together and get something out to you anyway about where we ended the fiscal year with regard to budget. That was my primary goal at this point, was just to get the information in Great Plains aligned with the budget information. I am going to be working on income statements for each property. But that again takes a lot more work. We do have a software demonstration on Thursday and then another one about 2 weeks from then. So hopefully at your next meeting, we'll have some information on moving forward with better software, which will make my life a lot easier. So, and then the other question came up about the bridge replacement activity. All of the bridge replacement activity is in the bridge replacement fund, which is the information that was on page 87. So I did want to make sure that everybody knew that none of that has been commingled or anything. The bridge replacement information is all in one fund now, starting this last fiscal year. So we have one complete fiscal year of that information on page 87. There weren't, as far as I know, there weren't any big surprises. Toll revenue is up slightly, but not a lot. And there's been a lot of talk, there's forecasts of 1% growth in traffic. And of course, there's no CPI or anything built into the toll rate. And so the total of our tolls will only grow at this point by growth in traffic. And so there's been like about a 1% estimate built into future. And I don't know, it's hard to forecast what our growth in traffic will be. Other than that, I had some other highlights on here. It's nice that we actually right now have a little bit of savings because the interest rates are just sky high right now, which is, or at least compared to what they've been in the past. So that's been nice. We did have a couple of fairly large grants last year in fiscal year 22. So when I was going through kind of comparing year to year, if you do go through and do that, there was a couple of spots where you'll notice that there was a lot of, from 500,000 to 0. And that was mostly coronavirus grants that we received in fiscal year 22. Lease income was up, as I noted in here, about 5%. And I did want to talk about that just a little because we have removed that cap from the future lease template, the one that Kristen has put together and Greg has started to use, but most of our leases still have that 5% cap in there. And back when inflation was running 2 to 3%, that sounded just fine. But when it hit this, 8, 10, 12% inflation, not so good for us. But so that is one of the reasons I think lease revenue would have been up more if we could have hit them with levied the full CPI. We were within budget, pretty much everything. Many of our capital outlay items, so there were a few areas where we didn't spend that money, but a lot of those items are actually placeholders. So in case the HVAC system does go out or something like that, we do have the money to, appropriate it already to go in and replace that. And we didn't have much unexpected expenditures. So a lot of those didn't get spent and will carry over, they end up in the ending fund balance and just basically in the savings account that then gets carried over into the next fiscal year. I think that was pretty much the highlights. I don't know if anybody had any specific questions about things.
I've got a general question for you. This budget was based on a certain amount of work getting done.
Mm-hmm.
And you've noted that we've underrun
Mm-hmm.
certain areas. what work did we plan to do that didn't get done, and how does that impact the underrun?
I think and I haven't gone through the CPI items, or the CPI, the capital improvement plan, the CIP items specifically, because last year they didn't have a really good just list. When Fred did his budget, he would go through and put them in the line items, so I kind of need to go through the line items and see what was specifically budgeted. But the two big ones that didn't get done were the wire ropes, which of course have been postponed to this year, and also the underwater pier work was budgeted for fiscal year 23, and both of those items got shoved into this fiscal year. So those were the two big ones I know of.
How about the fuel system up at the airport? Slid
It's
out.
right, it's not finished, that's
And
correct.
the property up in Odell is another one that didn't get done, got pushed in. What else did?
Oh, the other, another big one was the, and I think I listed it on here, yeah, lot one, we had like 1.4 million budgeted for lot one, and that also did not get completed this last fiscal year.
One of my comments to the group was that I think it's really healthy to go through what you did. I think it's even more healthy if you had the area managers that are responsible for an area to actually do that and report on it, not you.
Yeah, well, and they need,
They're the ones that are doing the work.
and they need the numbers in order to do that. We're just now getting the numbers put together, but we will definitely be going through that, yeah. Because the other thing I have to know is, are there things that we didn't get budgeted into the current year that didn't get done last year and need to be moved forward? I think I caught everything, but I'm not sure. I may have to come back to you with a budget adjustment if we didn't catch everything that was supposed to get done last year and didn't.
See, it's a philosophical thing that I've got here. Who is responsible for getting the work done? In my opinion, it's not you. It's the various area people that are responsible for, managing contracts, directing staff and so on. You happen to be the gatekeeper for the numbers, but they're the ones that have to perform. And I think having the raw numbers is great. That's the starting point. But we need to see analysis from the organization of what happened, what can we learn from it, and how can we improve going forward? Otherwise, it's going to be the same discussion every year. And I think we've had the same discussion at least the 2 years I've been around. So I would really like to see us consider pushing the responsibility over to those people that actually perform that work and hold people accountable for what we hired them to do.
I think if I could, just one thing that we've implemented were schedules that I periodically send out to the commission. Each of the managers maintains their schedule, and they're all in a comprehensive Excel spreadsheet. And so I think that that's been a helpful tool in
It's a good start.
maintaining.
And it's only happened in the last couple of months, but it's a good start, and there's, of course, room for improvement, but we're on the path. I'm just suggesting we take the next step and keep going. If you really want to be a world-class organization, that's what they do.
And I think once we get the new software up, we can take that schedule, merge it with the budget and progress and marry those.
There's a lot of muscles that the organization's going to have to learn how to use to be able to do that. And I look forward to doing, seeing that.
We're up for it.
It's a big change coming.
Yes. Okay, and so then what's next on the? As far as, so once you implement the software, what will be the next?
Well, so we're, like I said, we'll have our 2 demonstrations this month, and then we'll be talking about which one we want to move forward with. We'll come to you in September with that.
Okay, so September.
And then become, well, and then the one that will take a while, probably, hopefully not too long, is negotiating the contract. I don't know why in this day and age, it does seem to take a while to negotiate a software contract, but we'll work through that as efficiently as we can. And then it's kind of up to the software company. I mean, we'll work with them as much as we can, but it's kind of up to them and their time schedule to get us implemented. But we're going to be as efficient as we possibly can to keep this on schedule, because I really want to change. I want to change a lot. So the next budget season is going, I've already warned Kevin that we're probably gonna have to have at least 2 budget meetings this next year. I know you guys are used to 1, but we probably have to have 2. Because I want to make some pretty big changes. And so that means that the new software will have to be ready to go on July 1.
So if I may, what you said raised a red flag for me. And I've done what you're gonna do multiple times throughout the years. When you stated something in the name of, well, we're gonna have to rely on the contractor to get it done. Do you have it in your proposal, into your contract, that you're gonna put a schedule together and they're gonna agree to the schedule? And you're gonna put some kind of damage against it, that this is so critical. Financially, we have to have that system up and running by such and such time.
And we will do that. That will be in the contract. The problem is I don't have control over that on the contract. I can say we have to be live by July 1. If the contractor comes back and says, we don't have the staff to have you live by July 1, there's nothing I can do about that, other than say, well, then we'll go with the other guy.
I think what you're gonna have to have that discussion with them. That,
Oh, yeah.
okay,
we will.
what are you going to do to be able to meet this condition?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it's their staff and their trainers that have to be available. I mean, I worked for a software company and I had cities and counties come to me and say, we have to be live on January 1. And I said, I can't do it because I don't have the staff to send out there to train your people. And so we would have to have that negotiation. And, there were just times when I just simply did not have the staff to make it happen. So that's where I'm saying we're dependent on them, because we can't go live until we're trained and have the system up and running.
I would just offer up to you, there's other ways that you can help them see the light. Which means you may want them to go team with other trainers on their system and bring them in as a consultant. There's lots of that kind of stuff that does all the time, all over this business. And again, I've actually done this on big projects. So I know what you're faced with. The other concern that I have is you're talking about them. Have you thought through what it's going to take from you?
Yeah.
It's going to be a huge commitment on your side and your team's side.
And that's why I came to you with the budget and you guys approved it. We have a new full-time person up front and we moved Yolanda to full-time as well. So we have 1.5 additional FTE now in the office. And that was the primary reason that I came to you with that, was because, yeah, this will be a huge time commitment on our part.
So this isn't gonna be the way you want it next time we start talking budget, it's gonna be the time after that.
The next time we start talking budget, it'll be the way I want it. So
Not
in
July.
April, May,
You're gonna have it, I thought it was July 1,
well, that's when so when we start talking budget, come this
April,
winter, spring,
yeah.
that will be for July 1. That'll be the July 1 budget that goes into effect
When do you
But
expect?
this, you will have the system in place producing
on
what
July
you want,
1.
the way you want, starting July 1.
Yes,
So we will not have it for budgeting next year.
not for the budget itself. You're correct.
Okay.
That would
That's what
that would still be in Excel.
Yeah, I understand lighting a fire under people, and I
Right,
think that
right,
should
right.
be required, but I just
Yeah.
want a clear expectation of when we can expect that. That's July 1.
That's July 1.
Okay.
The budget that I bring to you will still be in Excel this time.
So part of the deliverable will be procedures and training material, user manual.
Yep. That was all in the RFP that they have to provide.
And the software that you're going to buy, either one of them, is it the same software, different vendors, or is it 2 different types of software?
It's the same type of software, but it's 2 different
Okay.
products. So it's like
Okay.
buying a Chevy versus a Ford.
That's fine. And you thought through in your RFP that Is there gonna be some kind of a maintenance program where we get updates, including manual updates for training?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good.
Yep. It will be a subscription-based software, so we will be paying a monthly fee, they will an annual fee divided by 12. But yeah, we'll be paying a regular fee, which includes all of the updates.
And you're working with Radcom through this too,
Yeah,
correct?
oh, yeah.
Perfect.
This one won't have as much of an impact. This is going to be cloud-based. So
Okay.
basically what we need is a really good internet connection. And beyond that, and we do have, by the way, we tested it unexpectedly this weekend. We do have a backup internet system now that just, so our primary server primary provider went down this weekend, and the other one just immediately popped into place, and nobody even knew that we were down, so.
Oh, that's good.
So, yeah, we were very happy that that worked the way it was supposed to work.
All right. Thank you very much. Off to Kevin, committee formation policy discussion.
All right, so this item was precipitated from a request from a couple of commissioners regarding creating a bridge committee. And so it made sense to bring this forth to the commission. There can be a discussion amongst the commission about what this bridge committee would look like, how it would function. There's a draft resolution kind of showing what it might look like. I didn't have a lot to really go from. So I think the purpose statement that's in that draft resolution was just the my best guess. But I also wanted to be able to talk about the different types of committees. So we've got three different types of committee. The budget committee is statutory. That one's kind of stands alone by itself. And then there's these standing committees, which are like the airport advisory committee, the marina committee, waterfront committee, which are kind of like larger membership-based appointments. And it's a public meeting process. They're all noticed. There's minutes taken. It's a formal committee. And then there's these internal committees. And right now there's the personnel committee, which is made up by the president and vice president. And then the finance committee, which has not met very often. And I believe that's the secretary and the treasurer that serves on that.
President and treasurer.
President and the treasurer on that one. And they're unique in the sense that they don't really meet the public meeting requirement. There's not a quorum requirement. There's only 2 members. One thing that's really interesting about this is that when that committee comes back to the commission, it's not like a vote was taken, and it's an individual recommendation, not a committee recommendation. And I think, and Christie, you jump in here if I go off the rails, but really that allows for more nimble discussions without going through the noticing and public process, while still allowing commissioners to dive deep into discussions and get some feedback along the way. So that's kind of the background. I don't know if there's anything else that should be added about those types of committees.
Oh, I think that was comprehensive unless there are questions.
Is there a limitation on numbers of commissioners that could be on one of those committees?
Yeah,
Two.
can't be 3.
It can't be a it can't be a quorum unless it's one of these. What is it called? Statutory.
Oh, the executive.
Executive committees, but in that case, it has to be the entire commission. And then that would, of course, be noticed.
So with that, if this is where the discussion amongst the commission would be helpful, if the intent is to allow 1 or 2 commissioners the opportunity to work with staff, dive into these topics, my recommendation is that would be an internal committee, be limited, to 2 commissioners. We've got pretty young facilities manager. I would like to be the lead on that, and Other managers to participate as the conversation dictates. But that's our recommendation. And then it's really just a question about what the purpose is and making sure that that gets codified in the resolution.
Yeah, and if I start by saying that this kind of was brought up, you know, we get a lot of presentations from engineers. We get a lot of things that are done in a public meeting. And I think that there are things that people would want to dive into the weeds a little bit more. Whereas the entire commission might want the higher level outcome of what that diving into the weeds is. And so hence why it would be good for it to be an internal committee so that they can dig their fingernails in and have these conversations.
I understand that. The only concern that I would have is to make sure that the main committee is not abdicating the responsibility of performing work in a safe manner, everything else that we did particularly do, because if there's a subcommittee, as an example, on a bridge, and we're going through that and we find things and we say, hey, this is an area of concern. Okay, that doesn't abdicate, I don't believe, your responsibility from a board commission point of view to be able to challenge and ask the questions, which may mean that you've got to get into the engineering discussion to be able to get your own mind set. Yes, here's what I believe that needs to take place. So as long as we're not abdicating that responsibility away from it, I think that's fine.
Yeah, just as
That's
long
my
as the
opinion.
commission, just as long as the commissioner doesn't cross the line of giving direction to an engineer on behalf of the commission, you can't do that. I use that example.
Right.
You know, you could sit in a meeting, gather information, have questions answered. I did that last week. It was great. And because I don't have the ability as one commissioner to be heavily involved in every aspect of this board. No one does. But if a commissioner is in each area, well, then I can ask you from a commission perspective for some clarification on the things that are important to us. I can ask staff to go find out from the engineer,
Right.
the rest. And then I can get a recommendation from you.
Yeah.
Based on what we've all decided.
And that I think is fine, and I think that's part of your responsibility. That we should not be abdicating to somebody else.
And I also think this committee would be good because there are things that come up that are unexpected and, you know, like this recent control box issue. And that would be a great thing to, instead of funneling it to, you know, me. Then the committee could make that snap decision. I mean, it was a snap decision of, do we feel that this is important enough to bring forth as a discussion item? Or is this something that we agree that just it needs to get managed and dealt with? It's within the budget, it's within all the parameters, and it helps keep us on the same timeline for an incredibly much larger project. And so I think some of those discussions.
Well, and I think if we're talking bridge specific, I think those issues are going to continue to pop up
I think they're
And
gonna
it's gonna
pop up
get
more and
more.
more, yeah.
as the bridge continues to age.
Well, no, there's a decision like that, a couple of commissioners need to get a hold of everybody, fine, you can make that decision pretty easy.
Mhm.
Federally mandated to make that thing go up and down. Make it go up and down.
It was the right decision.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah.
Highly technical, but yes.
Wasn't really a choice.
Yeah, that Coast Guard really likes that thing to be able to move, so.
So I guess just if I could.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Fox did, I think in one of the documents, have a purpose statement. And so we just want to, if we're going to prepare a resolution creating this, I want to make sure that everybody is really clear on what the purpose of the committee is. So
So what I did is I took your draft and I reworded, tried to clarify it, put a little bit more meat to it. That says, change the purpose to say, understand current plan for capital expenditure and maintenance programs of the current bridge. Evaluate and recommend changes as needed to potentially better anticipate future issues facing the bridge's safe operation. Evaluate and recommend as needed alternate management tools to better identify and address planned, anticipated and emerging issues facing the safe operation of the bridge.
Recommend to whom? The commission?
Yeah, it would come back to the commission.
Let's just put recommend to the commission and not to staff.
If it-
Staff.
Well,
If it is a committee making recommendations to the commission,
Can't
it
be
has to be
internal.
public.
there could be. And this is, I don't know, but take the example that just happened last week,
Mhm.
where we had a failure of the gearbox. Okay, I don't think you, on those issues, you don't want us coming back to all of you to say, we got a problem with the gearbox.
2 weeks later, yeah.
Yeah, go get it fixed. So what I would suggest we do in that particular case, I'm not giving anybody any direction. I would say to Kevin, I believe you need to proceed forward on this. It's critical nature. We can't lift the span. We've got regulatory requirements that we're gonna face. I would recommend that you take action.
That word, so is it that recommend, is that the,
It's depending on who the committee is making recommendations to. If the committee is making a recommendation to staff on an item that wouldn't otherwise come to the full board, that's fine. If the committee is making a recommendation to the board or on an item that would otherwise come to the board, at that point, it would need to comply with the Oregon open meetings laws.
Clarification though, for an internal meeting, with two commissioners. Couldn't those commissioners make individual recommendations to the
That's-
board and still be an internal committee?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Right.
That's that, pretty nuanced fine line, but yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
In an effort to avoid a single commissioner giving direction. We're obviously gonna use this as an example of this new committee, I believe it was the two of you that would put down on there.
They got the-
If we said, no, we like that process, keeping an internal committee. Letting that committee, be the points of contact for the commission with staff. If they want to make a recommendation, both commissioners need to agree on it, not a single commissioner giving direction, but both commissioners agree.
But once you talk about any kind of group decision, you're crossing the border into public meeting requirement.
If it's just the two of you talking.
Just the two of you talking.
That's what she said last night at our meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
We got that handed down.
That's right.
Yeah.
If the two of them are making a recommendation to the board on a topic that is a board topic, that committee meeting would need to comply with the open meetings, even if it's only two.
Yeah,
So
no,
making
I
it-
was
making
saying,
it staff is my
I was
question.
thinking just the
As-
two of them
right.
making
As long
recommendations
as
to
it's
staff.
not something that would otherwise be required to be a board decision, yes, that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine.
And in terms of the committee's role in the decision-making chain for action on the bridge, are we adding an approval step? To where engineers or staff are addressing an issue, do they need to then get approval first from the bridge committee before moving forward on this action? And is that step, how does that implicate the public decision-making process as well?
well,
Yeah, maybe the committee doesn't, I agree with that. Maybe the committee doesn't have actionability.
It's a reporting,
It's just a
understanding.
reporting and, yeah, because the control box breaking, yes, that was something that needed to be managed quickly.
Can I ask a question for clarification to Kevin? What's your rubric for deciding if an issue comes here, or you can just be like, I'm gonna fix that thing?
yeah, so, well, one is price.
Okay,
Price is the big one.
Okay.
So
all right,
clearly if it's 10,000 or less,
You can
then
just be
I
like-
can do the sole source procurement.
okay.
If it's gonna be bigger than that, then, that's where this bridge committee would be really helpful because I could let them know, everybody say, great, we can convene a special meeting,
Mhm.
special public meeting. If we need a procurement,
It seems like that, and I'm just trying to understand the
Yeah.
rules. It seems like that's just putting an intermediate step in it. that. To me, you need to have clear direction that says if it's under 5,000, I get to go do it. If it has an impact on an immediate health issue. You ought to be able to go do it.
And those, the draft public contracting rules will delegate to Kevin more. We don't have that in place now, but in the next few months, we will.
I think coming back to your
Yeah.
question, I think that like using the gearbox, we kind of got a sense of what the scope was. Was it like, did we have an engineer specifically identify all of this? There had been a phone call between the facilities manager and our consultant, the engineer who does the lift. We got some feedback, and then I called everybody just about and made sure that everything was on the right path. I think you were on the way to Tri-Cities, and I didn't share what everybody else's opinion was. I just took that direct opinion and made the call.
Mhm.
And so that's what I think the advantage of this committee would be, that if you, like the Scour evaluation that came out this last month, that's a pretty healthy document. And so this committee, it would be great to have that document brought to the internal committee. We could even bring the engineer and they could do a deep dive.
Yeah.
And if there's, 5 or 6 things that come out of that, frankly, I think it makes more sense for the staff person to then come back to the full commission and say, talking with the internal committee, we received feedback and this is how staff is recommending that we move forward. Once you get into the open session, then it's wherever the full commission wants to go. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that was kind of my interpretation of it. Is this allows a couple of commissioners to deep dive into some of these reports that might go over some of our heads, because we don't have the, when I'm sitting here listening to an engineer talk and give a presentation, I'm not as versed as knowing the right questions to ask. This allows people to sit down and have kind of a conversation, give feedback to Kevin, and then Kevin can come to the commission and say, this is the concerns, and then we can talk about it in a public meeting.
So I think you could easily take, and the idea of this purpose statement is excellent, but instead of the wordage evaluate and recommend changes, something like evaluate and provide individual feedback
Perfect.
on possible changes to staff and the board. Something like that, because then it comes back to, we get to take advantage of those internal committee rules, which are a lot more flexible.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say. The gearbox is kind of very unique and it's almost like a safety issue. You gotta do something with it. If we're doing this right, 99.9% of the time, we shouldn't be in that condition. That's the purpose of having this discussion. To see if we can't get a little bit more predictive instead of reactive.
Right, I just don't think we can get around that whole $10,000 rule. If it's,
$5,000.
or I thought it was 10.
I think it's
10.
10.
It's 10.
Yeah.
If it's gonna be over that, then what we'd have to do is call an emergency session of the board.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is 99.9% of the time, hands down, it comes here.
Mhm.
Another situation would be the 30-year capital improvement plan.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's a document, lots of interest in that because of the new bridge and how that's all lining up together. So that document would be great for this internal committee to review with Mark Libby and talk and validate, get whatever feedback the committee members need to feel confident about how it's stated. If for some reason there's alternate opinions about stuff and it justifies, really changing something, then we bring it back to the full commission. And you have that conversation and.
So like on the bridge committee,
Yeah.
who would you see that would be in that committee other than the 2 of us?
Well, I would see myself being the lead, obviously Ryan, since he's on the operational side. would need to be there. I could see Debbie certainly needing to participate at times. If there's a public relations component, I could see bringing Jen in. So I think that I would probably, I mean, this is my recommendations, I'd be the lead and then, bring folks in as it's appropriate.
Yeah, my interpretation, similar to what Chrissy said, is it's not primarily for emergencies, it's for just general discussion, doing a deep dive and discussing maintenance and schedules and all that.
Yeah, I just did one change.
I think everybody's close enough to saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Mhm, I think we're good.
Concept is good.
And then along with that discussion of creation of a new committee, I do think if we're gonna adopt this resolution for it and we're assigning committee agreement, commitments. There was a couple of changes that needed to be made before we adopt the committee people.
Well, the only thing I wanted, just looking at it, there's two inactive committees.
Mhm.
The architectural site review,
What page is that on, Kevin?
that's 101.
Thank you.
Is that the one that has been active since the eighties?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can probably get rid of it.
So, we could, might as well. There was also, there was also another comment about the finance committee. I think there was a request by a commissioner to want to be.
Yeah, but I understand you can only have two
Okay.
on it.
Yeah.
yeah, our governance policy states president treasurer, so.
Right, but I mean, it's you could, if you wanted to change that.
Yeah.
That's up to you. If you're happy with the way it is, then, that's fine, but. Sounds like maybe deleting the architectural site and community relations committees would make sense.
And then we've merged marina and waterfront recreation to one, correct?
That's
No.
correct. Didn't we do that a year or two ago? I thought we did.
No, I don't.
No, the
think so.
marina was an ad hoc committee and it was made permanent.
Or is that what it was?
Okay,
And the waterfront recreation one is supposed to be focused on safety and just.
Yeah.
okay. And then, the ad hoc position for Visit Hood River, you have me down as,
Oh, you want to, okay, let me get that document out here.
what page is that on?
You're moving on to, it's page 9.
Do we need to look at the first one?
Let me just finish
Oh.
this so I can. finish.
Okay,
So for this resolution, so we'll go ahead, delete those two. We'll go ahead, I'll send the language or the purpose out one more time, just so you guys feel comfortable with it.
okay,
Incorporate that into the resolution to be adopted at the next meeting.
okay, and that can just be a consent, yeah,
Yeah, that'll just
Okay.
be consent, assuming everybody's fine with that. And then I don't think there's anything else in there that needs to be clarified.
okay,
Okay, so we've got our marching orders on that one.
okay.
And so let's go to.
I have a committee question and I feel like it's I could just ask someone privately, but I feel it's a good one to air. For instance, on the airport committee, the Port of Hood River Commissioner, members of that committee have never really voted historically when votes are called in that committee. And so I just wanted to get, I haven't seen anywhere in like port bylaws or rules or anything. Are the commissioner members of all these different committees, like say the airport, are they considered executive non-voting members or are they full voting members? Okay.
Because you wouldn't be voting on a recommendation to yourself. But you're
Right,
supposed
which
to
is
be there
super
to
weird,
listen.
right?
Yeah, you're supposed to be there to listen to the discussion so
Yeah.
that you, as the board liaison, can convey
Mhm.
what was the discussion behind this recommendation by your advisory committee. But you're not to vote on it.
So
Good.
assuming that's true, should that be added to the policy? Because right now it's silent on
On who's a voting member?
who the voting member
Be
is.
careful with each one. Urban renewal is a voting member. So
Right.
be careful, you don't make a blanket statement.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I thought you were just talking about the marina and the
Yeah.
port
The port
committee.
committees.
The advisory committees to the port, but the external committees, yeah, we sometimes do have a voting position. Yeah,
okay.
sorry,
okay.
I thought you meant.
No, no,
just
no,
our-
Yeah, like Visit Hood River, we don't have a vote.
that we're ex officio.
These are just the port.
Yeah, the port internal committee, well, not, I shouldn't say
Right,
internal.
but I know what you mean.
The advisory
Yes.
committee.
Yeah, advisory, thank you.
So I guess, is there any, I mean, is it fine? I mean, is there any reason why the members, commission members couldn't vote in that committee?
Which one specifically?
Like with the airport committee?
Well, Genevieve's point was it's silly because then you have a public committee and you're bringing in all these people to make a recommendation to the commissioners. And as a commissioner, you're voting too. It's,
So there's no reason to change that component.
I don't think so. I
But
think this.
I'm gonna argue that point just a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
If you're on the airport committee and you've got the group of people and they're going after 3 or 4 different options. And as a group, you take a vote, then I think the commission member has all the right to take a vote on those 3 or 4 different scenarios. One comes to the board with a recommendation.
No, I think it's a.
Well, what the recommendation to the board. It's not, that's not the formal decision, the formal decisions with the board.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so. The
We're-
vote
All
is,
we're talking is a recommendation coming out of that group.
right,
So
but the
why
board
should,
doesn't have to accept that recommendation.
That's exactly right. right?
I'd rather know it's a split vote. I don't wanna know what the commissioner decided to tell me. I wanna know it was a split vote and then ask why. I
Right,
don't think commissioners should be influencing advisory committees in any way. They're there to listen.
I agree.
That's how it's worked.
Yeah.
And I think we have had split votes and then you report that the committee split on this decision.
I mean, the
Then you
commissioner
find
can
out
come back to, as they give their committee report. And say, you know, there was a discussion, there's 3 choices. It was a split vote. Personally, I feel. That this decision is, you know, I would choose, my opinion would be go choice A. But then ultimately it's board vote. That's how. it works.
Right, I guess my concern is that board commissioners have so much more heft with decision making. And with these kind of standing committees, you really want the public members that were appointed to have as much say as possible.
Right.
In that input, so. That makes the most sense to me.
Okay, cool.
I agree.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and we'll just clarify that those positions are non-voting, put it in the policy just so that it's
Yeah,
clear.
they're already. Like I said.
Okay,
And I think with that, then, and then we do have the committee assignments later on the action items.
okay,
We move those out of the consent agenda.
okay.
Do we want to talk about announcements or anything?
We can certainly, I gotta figure out where I put that. That's page,
It's
So
this.
page 9.
yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Page 7,
Yeah, 7, 8, and 9 was the original consent items.
And we did have some changes after printing. The chart, but I think actually we got it. So there was a recommendation to nominate Commissioner Shepherd and Commissioner Gehring to Urban Renewal. And just so that you know, what you're approving is a nomination that is then
Accepted.
voted
by-
on by Urban Renewal. So we would be sending a letter of nomination to renew Commissioner Gehring's term and nominate Commissioner Shepherd to the URA.
Perfect.
And then I left on the bottom of page 9 under the staff. I forgot to change last year's information. Obviously, executive director is not currently vacant, and that should be Kevin Greenwood is the lead staff person for the personnel committee.
Okay. And then the only other change on that would be to change my seat on Visit Hood River and
Right.
recommend Commissioner Gehring to be.
let's see, this is,
That's on page 10, Hood River County Chamber of Commerce, change.
Do you have pages?
yeah, I got 10.
Yeah, okay.
And so Heather's replacing Christie on that?
Well,
No.
we're making corrections too. I think under the budget committee, it says that the CFO is vacant,
Oh, sorry.
which
Oh, right.
I'm
Yeah,
here
I
for
don't-
now.
We should-
Debbie.
these all just need to be considered.
Yeah, definitely change that. That's gonna be out.
Well, and the budget committee is the one that's dictated kind of by state law, so
Yeah.
you don't really get a lot of input into that
What were
one.
your changes for the committees? Did you have changes?
Just two notes, if I'm gonna do UR with Commissioner Garing, I need to be, I believe, nominated by the board to the city council.
Yes, that should be.
I said that, sorry, and then the second one was and I don't know how it's arranged, but if Commissioner Beaker is going to be the commissioner of the airport advisory committee, they probably need a new member. This is one and you guys will figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Those are the things I saw.
Gotcha. So the only other correction then was just Heather is replacing Christie on the Visit Hood River.
Yeah.
Committee.
I can be a backup.
Cool.
And I don't know if it makes a difference. How the names are listed, but I think Tor should be the lead for the airport advisory committee.
Okay. And you list, you're the alternate. Okay, got it.
Remember though. Not anything about your age.
I would delete that all.
Cool. So does that look good then with those edits?
Yeah, do we need to make a motion for the URA? To officially say we're supportive of
You will if you're approving the commissioner committee assignment.
Okay.
Altogether.
altogether.
And then one other question, on page 10 at the top, we did, I think 2 years ago, establish a bridge tolling committee. That was to work directly with Fred on evaluating toll rates.
I don't think we need to do
And
that
that
anymore.
committee was never formally approved, so
Pulled it.
pull it, okay, so,
We're not doing anything with bridge tolls anymore.
okay.
Correct.
Not
I don't
for a
need those
while.
emails.
Yeah.
It's like you want more emails.
Don't want any more of those.
Hey, one thing also is I noticed that in the actual document going back to the governance policy, it actually lists only one port commissioner in those committees. So right now there's like for the airport advisory, there's Garing and Beaker, but it only states that one commissioner is actually on that committee. So
The others, they're alternate.
well, is that, I just want to clarify that. I mean, you can change it right now and put both commissioners on there. Or make it an alternate,
The first name is.
but right now on those marina waterfront airport, it just says one commissioner.
Just put a change to say there's a lead and a support.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Gotcha, or alternate,
Mhm. It's just
or
nice to,
just two, just change it to two.
I think a lead and an alternate sounds good.
Okay. All right, so with that, we can entertain a motion to accept the committee assignments as discussed.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the committees as discussed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, very high. Okay, we'll get that out of the way, and then, we're on to the executive director report, Kevin.
Yeah, so just, I want to just touch on some things that were not in the printed report. So just an update on the gearbox. The motor's in good shape. This is a conversation I had with Ryan Clapperich, who had been in touch with the Philadelphia company, which is in Pasco, Washington. They are in possession of the gearbox. They are looking at 3 to 4 weeks to repair it. They disassembled it. And the issue was that there was extra packing around the axle. And I guess it's intended to keep water out and keep the grease in the box. And somehow it got caught up on the axle and started pulling out. And that's what gummed up the gear work. And so that's what froze it. And they're taking that apart, removing the packing and then reinstalling new packing. So other than that, the actual gears are in great shape. They didn't lose any teeth or anything like that. And so the disassembly causes the need for new bearings, and so they'll change out the bearings and the seals, which are in transit. And so then they can reassemble it, bring it onto site. In addition to that, Ryan is contacting some helicopter companies. Apparently, it would only take like literally a minute or two to get that whole unit up onto the tower. It would really minimize the bridge closure time. And so he's looking at that as a possibility for getting it back up. The good news is well, depends on how you look at it. We're not going to wait until the wire rope replacement to try to put that back up. We're going to go ahead and put it back up weeks in advance of the wire rope project happening. So that's the latest on the gearbox.
Did he do any checking at all on the north tower?
So Ryan did go up to the north tower. He disassembled the motor from the gearbox, and then he was actually able to
able to turn it.
manually turn that axle. The other items, so Genevieve took 2 days plus to do it, but she did the call down for the Friday, November 3rd to November 6th wire rope closure. So everybody's been contacted. I personally talked with Doug Gibson at Mount Adams Fruit and with Doug E at Everybody's. And so they're aware of it. And so we can now put a press release together with those dates, get it out soon, and get it on people's calendars.
And I saw all of the open items that we talked about in the note. You've got clarification points for everyone.
I did. In fact, today I got new feedback on that schedule, which I'll update and send back out into the week.
Not to belabor this.
Yeah.
Is there any ability to knock out some welding at that time too, since it's closed? Or is that just getting in the way?
I don't know. Let me find out.
What, say that again?
Get some
The
check
spot
welding.
welding that we typically have to close down for, I was wondering if they would be in the way if we tried to knock some of that out for a day there. If it's even possible that time of year.
Well, especially with this much lead time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Spot welding during closure.
Or anything else during the closure.
Yeah. Okay, let me check up on that.
Perfect.
And then the last one that I just wanted to bring to your attention, and maybe it's been mentioned, but the parking fees. So it looks like we're about plus 50,000 compared to last year on the parking fees and the event or season passes. It could actually, by the end of the season, be more closer to 75,000 over. So it definitely has been a significant contribution to the bottom line.
So I don't know if I can ask this question now, but I'll try it anyway. We've heard a lot of comments from the public on, as we heard tonight, the parking fee for the ramp. But as important, the ability to sign into the application to be able to pay the bill.
Yeah.
I fully intend to come early and go try it myself to see how good or bad it is. Has
Right, so the
anybody
other
else done it?
I want to use I use the city is all the time now, and in 2 seconds I'm parked. It's easy.
Yeah, once you have it set up, it's the
part-
same, it's pretty much the same thing.
Oh, it's simple.
I'll just say that we've had thousands and thousands of successful transactions through the
Yeah.
app, both through the app and the text and pay. But if you don't already have the app on your phone, it's very hard to download the app on cell data if you're not on Wi-Fi.
Especially at the hook. So that's
Especially
the
at the hub,
problem
yeah,
is-
and it depends on different, cell providers, who's, it's a little bit of a troubleshoot, but what I've seen is the hardest thing is when people are trying to download the app at the event site to pay. If you've already got the app, it's really convenient because your license plate number and your payment is
It's all
already
saved.
in there and you're just buying the time.
So do we?
If you don't have the app downloaded, you should use the text to pay. And you have to enter your card in every time in your license
I
plate, so
get
yeah.
that,
yeah.
And I think you bring up a really good point. If you're at home and you've got Wi-Fi,
Yeah, set up the
downloading
app,
that app, it's gotta be a lot easier than waiting on cell.
yeah.
So is there a way that we could
Yes.
communicate that to people of,
Yeah, so the kids that we have in the event site booth are actually helping people with that.
Right.
Grabbing their phones and helping them with that. The parking enforcement officers are helping people with their phones and helping.
No,
them
what
with
I'm
that.
saying, like a Facebook post with like a
Yeah, we can do
QR
that.
code
Yeah.
or whatever, you know.
Yeah, we can do that.
Say,
I
get
was
your,
also thinking putting a little article out on the webpage under tolling.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, to
get your app.
ease this up.
Okay.
Do it this way.
Totally.
I said, you know, the other day, I had to pay a lot of money because we had 4 cars down here.
So,
Yeah.
so the second piece to my
Stuck to each
question
other.
Yeah.
is, where do we take up consideration of changing the $2.50 an hour for the boat dock? My opinion, that's really expensive.
So if I could jump in here just for a sec. So if you recall, we did the comprehensive master user rate fee. Which I got good feedback that it was nice to have that all done once. That being said, the commission can change rates whenever you feel like it. So
I personally think we really hit a hot button on that one. And that especially for retirees, you ought to have some kind of a sticker or something that
Sure.
for that particular parking, let them do it for a year for X amount of
Didn't
dollars.
we make the marina parking over here this eligible for the event site pass?
Nope.
Yeah, yes,
did.
yes, actually,
What?
and
How much
yes.
does that cost per year?
So so
Gosh.
in the marina. In the marina. Parking, the regular length annual pass works no matter how long your vehicle is. So if you're a truck pulling a boat trailer, you don't have to buy the $350 pass. You can do the $200 pass. And that's in the resolution that you passed for
Okay.
parking.
So we already made that consideration. People just aren't aware that they should go buy that pass if they're gonna be
Yeah,
there.
so
And
they
we need
can-
to do
yeah.
our best to make them aware.
Right.
So they're not paying $2.50 an hour every
Right.
day.
And so the commission knows also, when folks are having trouble with the technology, the aim of adding those 2 areas for parking was to increase revenue to offset, to get to our goal of being off tolls as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
So we're not trying to make money on parking tickets. We're trying to make money on payment for parking. And so we're being pretty lenient when someone's having trouble with the app. We ask them to just pay for the time they were parked, not the full, $40. We're working with people. We're being as, understanding as we can when people are struggling with the technology. Yeah.
I think that may be beneficial if it's not out there already, some additional signage that says, hey, you can use your annual parking in this particular area or
That would have been
something.
really nice to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, we can do that.
I think there is some confusion over on this side of the table.
And the event type passes have always been transferable between vehicles. So you can also, if you have a truck that pulls your boat trailer, but you have a van, when you go to the event site, you can switch the pass.
Is there a sign out here that says $2.50 an hour?
No, but it's when you make your payment, the rate is disclosed. when you
Is there a
make your
sign or
payment.
is there gonna be a sign out here that says you have to pay to park here?
Yes.
There are signs
It
of
should also say this lot eligible for annual.
Okay.
Whatever pass, I think that would be.
Okay.
Helpful.
Obviously.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that.
the other thing too. Is
Yes.
that there will be a year reprieve. To try to get onto that July 1. Comprehensive rate cycle. So. Because we don't want to keep coming back, and so in order to start the full season in May. That won't, next May, this time will be the same as this year. But the rate resolution that happens in July would then take place the following May,
Unless the commission wants.
unless
to-
you want to change it up.
You
But-
can make special pricing for the marina lot. It's technically doable and we can do that.
I think that's the vehicle we have and we can change it if we need to change it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anything else for your executive?
No,
director
those
report?
are, everything else is in the report.
Okay, Commissioner Committee reports. Ben, do you have anything? Heather, you did urban renewal last night.
Yes, and the discussion was on phase 3 of
Heights,
the Heights District, just talking about. Basically. The preferred design concept. Um, I don't think any decisions have been made yet, but if anybody's interested in looking at the preferred design concept. I have slides of it.
Yeah.
Nothing that really affects support, just the community in general.
okay. Any
Yeah,
committees from you?
real quick, we had Representative Moniz
Sanchez.
Sanchez here today from the Joint Transportation Committee in the Oregon side.
Ways and Means. She's with-
Well, it's an Oregon.
Different.
And tomorrow we have Senator Bonham here.
Great.
And we're taking them out on the
The barge.
barge.
Nice.
We'll just gotta show them around and we'll see. And then next week, I think it's next week. Latest, the week after, we're submitting our
21st.
federal application for the big grant.
Great.
21st.
A lot of moving and shaking on that one. Tor, anything to report? Committee wise, I don't think that you had anything.
Nope.
Okay, so on to the action items. Debbie, you get to go first.
All right. So we talked about an accounts receivable process before and got some feedback on it. And so I've kind of cleaned up the resolution and brought it back. For just the process of moving forward if our tenants fall behind. What we're going to do. So, and I believe that Commissioner Fox did ask about us. Invoicing, we do invoice and it's just been, it's courtesy. We don't have to invoice our tenants. But if we don't invoice them, I could foresee them being late more often.
Can we encourage auto payment?
We can, yes.
Like a
I need-
3% discount or something if someone wanted to sign up for auto payment?
Yeah, I don't, do we want to do a
Did
discount?
you give the credit card pizza?
I know. it's pro-
Yeah, I was gonna say, before I would recommend that, I'd like to put some numbers together and see what we'd actually be talking about if we
Okay.
gave them a discount like that.
Or,
Cause we only got a 5% increase when a
yeah,
lot of our costs went up 10% and then, you know.
No, I get it.
So, but anyway, I mean,
Well,
or just, or just put out a request to have people, encourage people to do auto pay. I mean, do we have the capability to do?
well, it wouldn't actually be auto pay. They would be able to do ACH through their software,
Okay.
but we don't actually have auto pay.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Until we get new software.
Gotcha.
That is a requirement. That was one of our requirements, the new software, that we'd be able to set people up and let them have an auto pay type.
Okay,
function.
perfect. Okay, so that's coming. Thank you.
Yes.
so it's my understanding that in general, most places that lease property out do not provide invoices every month.
Yeah, I
You
had.
know
an
what your
experience.
lease is, you're expected to pay. I think we should strongly consider getting away from invoicing. But make sure they understand that, hey, you signed a lease, you're expected to pay on time. And I also think you ought to take a really hard look at the equivalent auto pay. And even if you give them a 3% discount, I think you're gonna find that the nuisance of trying to collect money, people getting aged reports and so on, ought to drop down to nothing.
And we do only have a few that are late. We don't spend a lot of time going after money. Most people do pay on time. The vast majority of our current lease people pay on time.
And I know
already.
we've got new staff and so on, but that certainly has not been the case the last 2 years.
Well, one thing, I don't, QuickBooks is a solution that we're gonna implement.
Yeah, well, that's for reporting though. That
Right.
won't really help with auto pay or anything like that.
Right, so one of the things that we're doing to try to make the best of the software that we currently have is that we're actually using QuickBooks. Just to basically do some invoicing and statements that everybody understands, it's easy to utilize. So that's currently being implemented so that we've got actual easy to use readable documents.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is that you're sending a signal to the lessees, hey, I don't have to pay until I get an invoice. And if we screw up and we don't send them an invoice, there's an excuse why they didn't pay. And it's an extra cost. The port is incurring cost to put together invoices and send them out.
Can we put notification on the next invoice that says we are moving to paperless? And at least start emailing the invoices to them, which is not a cost?
I don't care about paperless. I can't understand sending invoices out every month on a lease. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either.
There's no reason to pay your,
They never did it.
if 95, if the vast majority of people are paying, I don't want to create an issue if there's only ones or twos you have to deal with them. And if you need to bring it to us as you have, go for it.
Yeah.
But if it's not a problem, I don't want to spend too much time making it a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't understand sending out invoices on leases.
Well, can't we
And this
just
should take care
make a
of the
motion to
small
get rid of it?
Yeah, I think you can, or just.
Honestly, I think you can direct staff not to send out invoices anymore, and I think.
I think just a
that's what
consensus on that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
only one that is the reconciliation, isn't there like a reconciliation
Yeah,
process
true up.
that, the true up? So there are some one-offs.
Yeah, and I can see doing a true up either every 6 months or once a year.
We do
Yeah,
them once
that
a
makes
year,
sense.
and that makes a lot of sense. We can just send out one big notice once a year that says, here's your dollar amount, here's what you have to pay, here's your due date. Pay. And you're on your own.
And so we can adopt this resolution because it does say proposed timeline example, so it's not set in stone and you could.
Let me make sure that it doesn't say anything about sending out invoices.
It
'Cause-
just says there, your example, July 1st, August bill.
Yeah, and that, all you'd be approving, let's see, no, it does say
Section
that,
one.
yeah, section 1, so we need to. Just get rid of section 1 then. On
Oh, yeah, I
that
see that.
resolution. And then section 2 has to do with people that are late, so at that point. After that, we're just talking about when people are late.
And everybody's okay with the last one at 60 days, like personally, I'd like 45 days. Put them on notice and let's go.
45 is fine.
That's under section 2, right?
I'm sorry.
Section that three.
Section 3,
No,
Thank
it's
you.
on page 151, it's item number 6.
Okay, so the amendments would be under section 1, remove A,
remove section 1.
or remove section 1, and then under section 3. Change item
3D.
D to, but 45 days late. I think that's fair.
Fine with me.
And if that's the case, and there's no further discussion, can I get a motion for?
Could I want one more little piece here?
I would.
You know, I'm really into this discount for, auto pay equivalent. I wonder if we could link that together and go out and try and do an addendum on the contracts that are in place right now. And try and put more meat into those contracts, like if you're late payments. But to offset the late payments, which most people don't do, we'll give you a 3% discount if you do auto pay.
It seems to me, though, if 95% of our tenants are on time and trued up.
And if I can also interject one more thing, it's also our big tenants, the big dollar amounts that are the ones they pay on time.
Yeah,
Some of our bigger ones actually, and that would be some pretty, I mean, 3%. Some of these are paying, 30,000-40,000
Yeah.
a month. And so 3% would be a pretty big hit to our bottom line,
Right.
honestly. That's why I would hesitate for you to do a 3% until I could kind of look at what the impact would actually be on the port. Because the ones that are paying on time are the ones that would immediately go on auto pay to get that 3%. I mean, who wouldn't? So,
mhm.
And
I don't
the
get
other ones
offered
aren't
that
paying anyway,
like
so
that
they don't
either.
care.
and then, right, I'm not sure that one would get us what we're trying, where we're trying to get to.
I think if we had a larger problem of arrears of people being late, that might be a good discussion, but if the majority of our tenants are good tenants and
I'm good. I'll withdraw that.
So I'll move we approve resolution 2023-24-3 establishing account receivable policy with the few noted changes. Is that acceptable?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Sure. Aye. Okay. Item B, security worker position authorization, that's with Jennifer.
Bill, I'll jump in.
Go for it.
Since this has gone to the Personnel Committee, the internal Personnel Committee, so I don't know if the two of you want to, you reviewed it. I think this makes a lot of sense. We have done a survey, Genevieve's done a survey with HR Answers. The range on this position is $25 to $36.94. If you recall, we did budget $140,000 in the revenue fund maintenance department for a contract. If you carry out that hourly rate times 2,080 hours plus 1.7 for overhead, you're looking at 88,400 to at the low end up to 130. So you're still under the budget. There may need to be some kind of a change from material services over to personal services, but it's in the budget.
Mhm.
And so I think with everything we've been reading on the internet, and I mean, this community's just gotten really intrigued by what's been taking place on the waterfront. The timing of this is probably really good as well.
Mhm.
And so we're certainly recommending that it be approved, but certainly want to open it up to the individual members of the internal committee.
Yeah, I don't know if the rest of the ordinance that we currently have an employee since. I think totally certified,
In Washington State, he did security up in Spokane.
qualified, I guess qualified with an Oregon certification to take on this role.
Does this person carry a firearm?
Mm-mm. No, but we, in the work description, it does talk about
Safety.
safety and defensive equipment, but that Kevin will work with him on what he's comfortable with. And he's also been in touch with Chief Holstein to kind of talk about what are good personal defense things for unarmed people to utilize, and he gave us a brief list of mace, handcuffs, Kevlar vest.
Is there anything legally we ought to be thinking about here? To me, this guy or this person is gonna be at a higher risk of accidents, issues and so on in today's environment. Is there something that we need to do to get him beef up insurance or?
We did take this to Columbia. And so, and actually, there was no increase in like workers' comp or anything like that, which was kind of counterintuitive. But no, there's no skyrocketing workers' comp rate, but that's different than a legal discussion, so.
Yeah, it sounds like from the notes from Chief Holstein, that a good security person is more trying to diffuse the situation and knows when to back off and call the police, and he's not there to take people down and fight bad guys. And so if he knows his job well, he should stay out of trouble. But I understand the concern, for sure.
So nobody in our board really understands that piece of it. How do we make sure this new employee totally understands that? Do we connect them?
So
Do you connect them with the police department
well,
or?
he actually is gonna have to go to DPSST training. I think it's a 20-hour course in
Mhm.
Salem. So basically, any new police officer goes through that training in Salem. He's been through it in Washington State, but he needs to go through that here in Oregon.
This is, I don't mean this to be like a smart aleck question. This is one position?
Mhm.
It's written in such a way, it looks like this person's working 24 hours a day.
Well, but so two separate actions. There's the approval of the creation of the position and then hiring one FTE, but that could be more than one FTE as we respond to the security needs of the board.
That makes sense.
Any other questions? Don, can I get a motion?
We do want this to be subject to legal review because we want to give Kristen more time to work on those specific parameters of, what our security patrol officer is empowered to do and not do. So we want to give Kristen more time to deal with that liability risk questions.
I move that we authorize the hiring of a security patrol worker. Subject to the legal review.
And it wouldn't be hiring, it's just approving the job description of the worker, correct?
Yeah, Kevin is the one who hires and fires
Okay.
employees, but this is a new
Yeah.
position that we don't have, so.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and then we've moved consent agenda G down to action. About check signing authorization. Why did we need to do that?
Well, I think there was some question about, I think Commissioner Fox had brought up, Commissioner Fox, you had something about which positions were actually being approved to sign?
I think I can answer that
Yeah.
for you.
Just a clarification.
So before, it was easier for someone who had a Columbia bank account, an existing Columbia bank account, to be a signer under the port. And I was a Columbia bank account person and no one else, and you were a Columbia bank account person at the time. And so that's the reason that we deviated from the treasurer. And at that time, actually, when I became the signer, I was the treasurer. And we just kept me on as it because I was the only Columbia bank person.
And
But they have since changed their policy.
we didn't have an ED or a CFO, so I was the only signer on staff.
Right.
And we wanted to have more people able to sign so that we weren't ever, if somebody's on vacation, we weren't ever stuck unable to
Is
sign.
that why I stopped signing so many checks about 6 months ago? I signed a stack like that one, and then you just stopped. Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Now Kevin is doing that.
So the other question, and I think it was responded to, is how many people does it take to sign the check? Two, and can both of them be from the port, or does one of them have to be?
They can
from-
both be staff.
Yeah, Kevin and I sign the vast majority of the checks that go out the door.
Yeah, really happy that I don't have to do that anymore.
So I just wanted to make sure that the way that the resolution was written met everybody's needs. So if it does, you can adopt it as presented.
And legally, you're okay.
I have language.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-24-2. Authorizing Kevin Greenwood, Genevieve Joel, Debbie Smith-Bider, Christy Chapman, and Tor Beaker as signatories for port bank accounts.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Okay. Commission call. Anyone have anything that they would like to say? Start with you.
Just quickly, I attended a meeting with Kevin and Greg last week about the lot and infrastructure, the engineers, kind of the preliminary proposal. And in itself, we'll talk more about it later, but I was really impressed with not only the engineers, but the staff's thoroughness on the proposal. Every question I went with was already answered. Every directive that the commission has given was addressed. I was just impressed. So good job on that. I mean, one of the best starts I've seen to a discussion. So I just sat with, I didn't have much to say. They answered all of it. So I'm excited to see these guys get going on that.
Good. And they're not basing anything off of prior plans or
No, and some
anything.
of these guys were actually part of that and know a lot about it.
Good.
So I think if there's a good team there.
Oh, cool. Heather?
I don't have any.
Four. Okay. And then confirmation of commission directives to staff. I don't really think we had any.
Not that weren't already encapsulated in the action.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I will recess our regular session and we will enter into executive session under ORS 192.660 2E for real property transactions.